increase the testing.
There's a lot of people asking, why can't we do more tests, or why haven't we done more tests?
Ontario set up dozens of assessment centers to test people for COVID-19, but many of them are mostly empty, and people who want to get tested can't. Health experts say widespread testing is one of the keys to fighting COVID-19, but CBC News has learned the centers set up to perform those tests are seeing just a handful of people, and many of those referred for testing aren't getting it. The problem may lie in the lack of a critical testing tool. Mike Wise explains.
There were only a few cars going through this drive-through COVID-19 assessment center in Etobicoke today. Across the province, there are at least 68 centers being run by hospitals, but the health ministry says anywhere from 25 to 30% of those showing up are being turned away. Some doctors say the province's guidelines for who gets to be tested are too narrow.
It's difficult. It's frustrating. We all want to do the best for our patients and want to offer, the best we can in terms of testing and care. But at the moment, the guidelines are not really permissive to allow us to do that.
The province is putting a priority on testing healthcare workers, first responders, and long-term care residents. Ontario's labs have the capacity to process 13,000 tests a day, but recent stats show they are averaging much less than that, just over 4,000 yesterday. Once again, the Premier is vowing that will change.
Sure as I'm standing here, we're going to increase the testing. You're going to see the numbers. We do have to give them a day or two to get ramped up, but it's all hands on deck.
But the biggest problem facing a ramping up of testing may be a shortage of the number of nasal testing swabs that are available.
There's a global shortage, right, of actual swabs because everybody in the world is going through this at the same time.
Many doctors are using whatever swabs are on hand, like those used to test for strep throat or other parts of the body. They are better than nothing, but run the risk of not being as accurate.
Anything that is a swab now has sort of gone to be repurposed to be able to be used for coronavirus. And of course, different testing sites and different swabs come with different sets of challenges and different data accuracy.
She adds that if a patient is turned away from a testing center and continues to show symptoms, they should push to get tested again and keep up their self-isolation. Mike Wise, CBC News, Toronto.
A healthcare worker in Brampton has died of COVID-19. It's believed to be the first known healthcare worker to die because of the virus in our province. Angelina King is live outside Brampton Civic Hospital. And Angelina, what do we know about this person?
That's right. We know that he was a longtime cleaner here at the hospital. The union that represented him says that he was just a wonderful employee, a wonderful co-worker, and he's being remembered today. As you can see behind me, the flags at the hospital are flying at half-mast in his honor today. So we know that he was 58 years old. He died at the hospital that he worked at, Brampton Civic. Health officials say that he was last at work on March 18th and 19th. Then on March 20th, he started experiencing some symptoms, so he went and got tested, and then he was self-isolating at home. So he was never at work while experiencing any symptoms. Then a week later, on March 27th, his condition took a bad turn. He was having trouble breathing, so he came to the emergency room, and then he was immediately put on a ventilator in the ICU. And then 13 days later this morning, he died of COVID-19. Health officials say that it's likely he contracted the virus in the community and not at work. They say that an exposure assessment could not find any links to the hospital, but the union that represented the man and other hospital workers doesn't quite agree with that. The president says that it's still a little bit too early for that type of speculation.
It's premature to speculate about that when we know that the infection rates for healthcare workers are already 4 times the rate that they are in the general population. It's not unlikely at all that he contracted this at work, and I think that the time has to be allowed for the proper investigations to take place to determine that.
He also says that this man was extremely respected and well liked by his co-workers. Now, we also spoke with Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown today. He was actually out delivering cupcakes to hospital workers when he found out about this death. Here's a little bit about what he had to say.
It's heartbreaking for our community to lose one of our own, someone that was on the front lines working at Brampton Civic Hospital and going there with dedication every day. This healthcare worker was only 58 years old, and it shows you the elevated risk that healthcare workers take on to continue to go to work, to continue to serve the public, to continue to do what they can to keep us healthy during this battle with COVID-19.
So health officials here say that the man was a longtime cleaner at the hospital. His exact title is an environmental services associate. Health officials also say that anybody that was in contact with the man, including here at work, has been told to self-isolate. They also say that before all of this, he was healthy and had no pre-existing conditions. Dwight?
Angelina King at Brampton Civic Hospital tonight with that sad news. Thank you, Angelina. Long-term care homes have been particularly hard hit by COVID-19. Pinecrest Nursing Home in Bobcaygeon has lost 29 residents to the disease. The Seven Oaks home in Toronto has seen 16 deaths. Now, dozens more homes across the province are experiencing outbreaks. Lisa Shing now with how health officials are ramping up measures to protect the residents and the workers.
It's been a devastating week for Ontario's long-term care homes. More deaths affecting the most vulnerable, including St. Clair O'Connor, Chartwell Gibson, and Mongshong Home for the Aged. And in Hagersville, Ontario, a COVID-19 outbreak at Anson Place. 9 residents have died and 42 are infected. It's where Sue Hilton's mom, Rosemary, lives.
The biggest thing is not knowing what's going on.
Despite all this, Hilton says her mom is doing her best to keep her spirits up.
My mom, she's rolling with it. You know, she's like, well, we'll just have to wait and see when I can get out. And they're treating her well.
28 staff there also have the virus. The president of the union that represents some of them says workers aren't protected.
They're terrified. They're frustrated. They are getting no communications at all.
This as the premier made a promise.
We're putting an iron ring of protection around our seniors, especially those in long-term care.
But even as the province issued new directives today, Charlene Stewart says they don't go far enough.
It's more like a plastic mesh that's around these facilities. It's full of holes, it's full of leaks. It is not an iron ring.
Today, new directives to long-term care homes that all residents transferred in be tested, even if they're not symptomatic. And all residents with atypical symptoms like delirium, fatigue, or headaches should be tested. All staff must be equipped with masks.
None of these homes are consistently following any of the instructions that are there.
Today's guidelines also say employers should limit staff who are working at multiple homes. The director of geriatrics at Sinai Health says it doesn't go far enough because half of all nursing home workers are part-time.
Right now, it's just a strong recommendation, but it's not a mandate that has been done in BC.
Experts say British Columbia is the model for what all governments should do. There, the government is paying all full and part-time nursing home workers full-time wages. That way, they don't have to work at multiple homes. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The head of Ontario's Public Health Agency is temporarily stepping away from his job. Dr. Peter Donnelly, the President and Chief Executive of Public Health Ontario, has taken a medical leave. The reasons have not been disclosed, but the agency says it is not related to the coronavirus. Donnelly's departure, however, comes after the Premier expressed anger over Ontario's COVID-19 testing numbers, but the Premier said today Donnelly's leave has nothing to do with his job performance. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it will take months of continued determined effort to keep the number of coronavirus cases down. He spoke after health officials released their first look at national projections into how the outbreak could unfold. Julie Van Dusen has more.
Wrap your mind around the new lifestyle we're all living, of physical distancing and staying at home. It could last for months.
If our best efforts are successful, then possibly, hopefully, the first wave will end by the summer.
And that could be followed by other smaller waves. Right now, we're only at the beginning of the wave in Canada. How we move forward through this pandemic will make a big difference.
We're at a fork in the road. between the best and the worst possible outcomes.
The modelling released by Canada's Public Health Agency today shows between 11,000 to 22,000 Canadians could die over the course of this pandemic. That's among the best-case scenarios. If Canadians hadn't followed any health measures, the number of deaths could have been more than 300,000. So the order to keep following physical distance, hand washing, and staying at home continues.
It is a matter of life and death.
That means as the long weekend approaches and Canadians want to gather for Easter or Passover, the advice is don't. Stay in your bubble.
We're going to have a virtual Easter. My children understand that. My partner, myself, we're in our own bubble at home, and the kids, they recognize they need to be in their bubble.
On Vimy Ridge, more than 100 years ago today,
the Prime Minister said Canadians are strong and have forged their mettle through historic battles and hard times. This will be a long haul.
Normality, as it was before, will not come back full on until we get a vaccine for this. And as you say, that could be a very long way off.
A vaccine isn't expected for a year to 18 months. The virus itself could continue in waves through the fall and winter. This uncertain future, Justin Trudeau says, is Canada's new normal. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Premier today calling the latest unemployment figures from Stats Canada a, quote, punch in the gut, and he's suggesting the job picture is only going to get worse. The province lost just over 400,000 jobs in March, more than half of those losses coming in two sectors, with 119,000 jobs lost in accommodation and food services and 87,000 jobs vanishing in the wholesale and retail trade sector. The unemployment rate in Ontario shot up to 7.6% from 5.5%. The Premier saying today these numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. Now, across Canada, more than 1 million people lost their jobs last month. That pushed the unemployment rate up more than 2%. And as Aaron Salzman tells us, today's report catches only the very beginning of the pandemic in Canada.
We now know some of the numbers behind these empty streets, and they are staggering.
It's nothing any economist has ever seen before.
It's the largest monthly job loss since they began keeping track nearly half a century ago, larger than the financial crisis of 2008, 8 times larger than all the jobs lost during the ice storm in 1998. And this report only captured the second half of March, as the pandemic was just beginning to take hold.
We've reached a point where economic analysis falls to the wayside, and we can't help but think about how this is a disastrous and tragic situation.
People who were laid off were more likely to be female, younger, working in less secure, lower-paying jobs.
Over 90% have been laid off.
Nearly 1/3 of all job losses were in the hospitality industry. Housekeepers, cleaners, kitchen staff, all sent home as restaurants and hotels, the entire tourism industry shut down almost overnight.
A majority of our members are people of color, immigrants, and they do live paycheck to paycheck.
Ontario and Quebec, with the largest populations, had the most people looking for work, but no region was spared. Alberta is dealing with both the pandemic and collapsing oil prices.
People are just plain scared and don't know whether or not they're going to be able to have a good paycheck to be able to pay their mortgage.
The self-employed also struggling. At 57, this Vancouver Pilates instructor worries she may not be able to pick up again when this is all over.
I'm at the end of my career, so this might be the end for me. I might just be limping along in poverty for the rest of my life.
Even people still working have had their hours cut. One small positive note, most who were laid off said they expected to get their jobs back within 6 months. Aaron Salzman, CBC News, Toronto.
The jump up on the lakeshore is no more, at least for 2020. Organizers for the Toronto Caribbean Carnival canceled this year's festival due to COVID-19.
To be honest, we are a little despondent, but we know that we're making the right decision to stand with our city and to stand with our province and our community to do the right thing.
It's just the latest event to be canceled in our city due to the pandemic. Billed as North America's largest street festival, hundreds of thousands attend each year. All of the events, including the Grand Parade scheduled for August 1st, are canceled. The decision was made over concerns around the spread of the virus. Organizers say if circumstances change, a non-traditional celebration may still be held. And call it is a highlight of the summer for a lot of people, but organizers making the right decision here.
Oh, for sure. I know a lot of disappointed folks, but all I can think is that hopefully by this time next year, it'll just be bigger and better than ever, which is almost hard to imagine, but that's kind of what we have to put our mindset at, right? How was your mindset today with these winds blowing through, right? A very blustery day. These are the temperatures, yeah, a little cooler than it had been when we're talking about those readings a few degrees below seasonal, 7 degrees at the moment. Some of those winds, though, west to northwesterly, these are just the sustained winds. Then we get into the gusts, and we're certainly seeing some of those gusts, look at Markham, exceeding 55 kilometers an hour. It's going to stay windy into tonight, and I'll tell you, much of the day, Good Friday, is going to be a windy one as well. Add to that, we've got an area of low pressure. Actually, the center of it's more to the north, but we're seeing some of the energy coming through, and so we're getting into some mixing already, but really, London, it looks like more of some light snow. At this point, it's still some showers into the higher terrain, though. A little bit of flurry activity. Muskoka reporting some light snow, and this is going to be kind of the thing. For the earlier evening hours, it's mixing with the light snow more towards the north, and then these are going to shift. We'll see some flurries coming into the GTA and lingering towards tomorrow morning, and some of that light snow off the lake as well as those winds are driving. I know it's April, but still, hey, this happens. It's driving some squalls. So we will get then into some clearing, and in fact, the best day of this weekend looks like it's going to be Saturday, so I'm going to talk more about the Easter weekend and the weather, but tonight down to 0 and 6 degrees tomorrow, another windy, cooler one, Dwight.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Honestly, I felt I'd be taken from the hospital to the funeral home. It was a brush with death.
After the break, this man's story of surviving COVID-19, the emotional toll it takes, and his wife's message to those that saved his life. You won't want to miss this one. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This Windsor family was hit hard by COVID-19. Health officials think they all might have had it, but 57-year-old Mohammed Kasara certainly did. He spent days at Windsor Regional Hospital and is now recovered. Chris Ensing met them in a video chat today.
It was devastating. I felt so bad. I was shaking like a leaf.
How difficult was it for you when you had to leave your family? Because we've heard about how you can't have visitors at the hospital and how you'd have to leave them behind.
Honestly, I felt I'm not going back. Honestly, I felt I'll be taken from the hospital to the funeral home. It was a brush with death. I was like having 1 foot in the grave. I have 2 little ones, 2 years and 3 months old, and a 5 years and 3 months old. I'm very happy. I'm very glad that I'm back with them. I put him in my lap yesterday. It was sunny outside. We sat by the door outside in the sun, and they were in my lap. And here's the little one. Here's the little one. Say hi.
To have you sitting on your couch beside your husband, smiling and laughing with your children around, how does that feel today, considering everything you've been through?
It's great. It's honestly great because it's been hell. It's been hell, but we went through it. I had conversations with his nurse. They told me that because the infection in his lungs was viral, that and COVID-19 really doesn't have any treatment, really. Like, it's something that has to be fought by the body, that it took some time and I'm very thankful that his body pulled through and got him better, and we have him back home. But I can't. I had to be strong for the family, but honestly, I can't imagine like how my life or our life would be without him. He's my long life friend, right? So I'm very grateful to God, and I'm very grateful to everyone that supported us within the community. You have no idea how, like, it was exhausting, the amount of phone calls that we got from within the community for support, which was beautiful. And so many people was offering me, saying, hey, if you need something, you need milk for the kids, you need something, we will drop off the groceries right at your front door, and you can just open the door and grab it. And some of them, they even did that, because I have the little ones and they drink a lot of milk. And my family doctor support, the hospital support, it was just wonderful altogether. It's just, I can't say that I'm more grateful to be a Canadian than now. This is
Chris,
I'm very grateful to be Canadian.
Chris,
I gotta be.
Starting from the ambulance and the ending up with the doctors, I raised the hat for them. They are on the top of my head.
It's gotta be nerve-wracking to have to go to work every day knowing that you can contract that and you can bring it back to your family. It gotta be. And for them to be able to deal with that in mind and stay calm and still perform their job and be kind to the others and be, not get disgusted with others and still touch them and still move them around and do all the things that they have to do. That's a lot of courage. That they need a good pat on the back, honestly. That this is the times where we need to show appreciation.
Oh, it really is. Glad they are all okay. And speaking of showing appreciation to frontline workers, a bakery decided to create hundreds of breakfast baskets that will be delivered to hospitals right around the city as a special way to say thank you. Now, the shop is also baking hundreds of loaves of bread to help employees who have been laid off due to the pandemic. We stopped by as they prepped some of those delicious treats.
Yeah, it took us 3 days to make it. I guess you can see it on our faces. Look at him, he looks tired, I look tired, he looks exhausted. So we got 400 loaves, sourdough loaves, from Petit Tuet, the bakery. And we're doing, it's a charity that we do together with the Fairmont Royal York. Whatever all the suppliers donate, the owner of the hotel is actually matching the value. So they would like to get they're looking to get approximately $50,000. Obviously, it's a great cause, and we try to support, definitely our industry, because obviously everybody knows the restaurant, the food industry got hit bad. with what's happening out there. We definitely try to help because we're fortunate enough that okay, our business is down, but we still have a business. But the restaurant closed, the hotels are not busy, so you know, we definitely we're hurting too. But you know, at least like I said, we have some business. You know, because we have a store, and we also deliver to other stores, and we still can go in every day and you know do what we love to do. So it's you know, it helps us definitely. In this time and these days, we try to give back as much as we can.
I've been celebrating Mass every morning at 7:30, and it's all being live streamed, but it's just myself and my assistant, Father Mark, in an empty church. And that is just, I've never had that before in my life.
It is one of the holiest weeks of the year. After the break, I speak with the Archbishop of Toronto, Cardinal Thomas Collins, about holding Mass online and how he's remaining hopeful during these difficult times. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's a new way for doctors to check in on their patients with COVID-19, keeping those who are sick at home. It's called COVID Care at Home, and it was developed at Women's College Hospital. Lorena Redekop got a look at what those distance visits look like.
It's nice to see you again today. Can you tell me how you're feeling? It's only been up and running a few days. The patient can stay at home with no risk of infecting anyone else, but still see their family doctor every day.
So we're asking them how their symptoms are doing, how they're breathing, how they're feeling, how they're coping during this time, and then really, as family doctors, trying to address the many health issues that often come out during this difficult time.
Just kind of press this and put your finger.
This virtual visit is just a test, not an actual patient.
And it will give you some number, usually kind of somewhere in the high 90s.
Some patients that using sort of more remote monitoring tools, like thermometers or to check patients' oxygen saturations, can be really helpful. So we've built a program to send patients safely those devices.
Dr. Payal Agarwal says she's seen around 10 patients this way. She says it involves checking both physical and mental health symptoms, like monitoring anxiety, and says patients don't need a lot of resources.
Kind of seeing how she's breathing, how she feels, making sure that there's not a need to do something more, add additional medications, and really supporting around some of the issues, again, the mental health pieces and the anxiety that often goes along with this.
Virtual doctors' checkups aren't completely brand new. Here at Women's College, for example, they use them for women who have postpartum issues. But when it comes to COVID-19, the hope is that these virtual visits could free up valuable space in the hospital.
Trying to ensure that we have systems in place if and when we do reach the peak was a big motivator for sort of how we built the program. We know if that happens, the hospitals are going to get very, very busy, and having a way to safely support patients in their home will be really important during that time.
She says they hope to expand to have these virtual visits used across the GTA. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
As the long weekend approaches, people are lining up at the LCBO, like the one here at Wellington and Spadina, to get their last-minute shopping done. Although deemed an essential service, the liquor store will be closed tomorrow, Sunday and Monday for Easter. Long lineups of customers stretch outside stores right across the city, including here at Danforth and Broadview. Look at that, as people got their last purchases in before closing. You'll notice they are following the rules, practicing social distancing as they wait. Many grocery stores will be closed tomorrow and Sunday for the holiday as well. More than 40% of Toronto's food bank programs have closed during the crisis. This comes as the need is higher than ever. The Toronto Public Library has stepped in to help fill in some of those gaps. Talia Ritchie shows us what it's been like for library staff to turn their branches into food banks.
These are some of our packed hampers.
Packing food alongside shelves of books. This is the new way libraries are serving the community.
My role in the branch is to be a part of this wonderful assembly line to make sure all the hampers are ready for when families come.
More than 100 library staff are participating in the initiative, and between 500 and 600 hampers of food are being packed per day.
It's a really gratifying feeling to see both their colleagues and to see the community be happy. It's been a beautiful experience, actually.
This branch behind me at Kingston and Morden is one of 9 Toronto Public Library branches that will be transformed into pop-up food banks.
The need for the food bank has never increased as much as it has over the last 4 weeks.
Daily Bread Food Bank has seen a 53% increase in the number of clients, on top of dealing with operational challenges during the pandemic.
We're seeing a lot of people who, over the course of the last month have been laid off, and so they have had to make the decision to come to a food bank, and we will do everything that we can to make sure that all of their food security issues are met.
Hetherington says that will happen with the help of donations and continued community support. It's a temporary new chapter for the library and its staff, but with a feeling of familiarity.
A lot of the staff volunteer to work in the branches where they normally work, so they know the community. It isn't as different as we thought when we first started, and then as we went in, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like what we do. We can do this, right?
The plan is to keep these pop-ups going until the pandemic is over. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
This year, in light of social distancing,
our Seder tables are emptier and our loved ones farther, even if they're just around the corner. The lessons of our story, resilience, faith, and unity, resonate more powerfully than they have in a long time.
Passover Seder is looking very different this week. Many families meeting around the table virtually to mark one of the high holidays on the Jewish calendar. With churches closed to help stop the spread of COVID-19, many Christians will be going online for some of the most sacred days of the year this Easter. Cardinal Thomas Collins, Toronto's Archbishop, will preside over services at St. Michael's Basilica, but the pews will be empty. Cardinal, how strange will that be for you?
Well, it's very, very strange. You know, we're meant to be together around the table of the Lord. Now the people are not able to come, obviously for the good reason. We want to care for others and be sure they're safe in this time of pandemic. But it's very strange. I've been celebrating Mass every morning at 7:30, and it's all being live streamed, but it's just myself and my assistant, Father Mark, and an empty church. And that is just, I've never had that before in my life. It's quite strange.
At least your parishioners can still see and hear you online, but what other ways will churches be reaching out to parishioners and beyond for Easter?
Well, I think that certainly the ability to at least to see the celebration of the great ceremonies of Easter, that's very important. People are joined together in prayer. We have in our parishes, they're more and more active, people phoning, caring for people, reaching out to the vulnerable, the isolated, the people who really need help. I've been just amazed and delighted and inspired by the way that the different priests and parishioners in the parishes are reaching out, especially to people who are suffering an awful lot at this terrible time. So it's inspiring. But we just want to encourage people to use this time. We're alone, and we're kind of our various things we normally deal with are taken away, to go deeper in prayer, to love God and love neighbor. That's what we're called to do.
Yesterday, you hosted a Facebook Live chat with parents and children. What kind of questions or stories did you hear during that?
Oh, that was a huge amount of fun. It was just great. They had a lot of questions, not necessarily about the COVID pandemic. One very astute young lad had noticed that the Chrism Mass, where we bless the holy oils, that we bless the oil used for the anointing of the sick right in the Eucharistic prayer, the very central part of the Mass, and the other two near the end of Mass. And he wondered, why do you do one right at the heart of the Eucharistic prayer? Why do you do the others later? So I explained, that maybe especially appropriate these days, because the anointing of the sick is very important. And so we try to care and heal people. So they're very good questions. And some were asking about the Vatican, asking about one young lady wanted to know about when I first thought of becoming a priest. So it was a great conversation.
Now, Easter is a time of hope for Christians. Let's talk about how you are remaining hopeful during this difficult time and how we should be too.
Well, I think this is a time, obviously, of great strain and sorrow, and we think of the people who are suffering and dying. But in the midst of all that, there's so much love. There's so much caring for others. And I mean, this is the world in which we live. We don't live in an unreal world. We live in a world of, as it says in the book of Revelation, of war, civil strife, famine, and plague. And it's in the midst of that we really find the opportunity to show love. And that's really what we celebrate every Good Friday, where the love of Christ on the cross, it comes out of a bad thing, the crucifixion, but out of that we have love from the midst of hatred and light from the midst of darkness. That's the heart of our faith as Christians. And we certainly see it in a time of pandemic like this.
Yes, we do. Toronto's Archbishop, Cardinal Thomas Collins. Happy Easter, Cardinal, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
If you have been cooped up too long and just have to get out to see your friends, this is how you do it. Calgary Police posted this to Twitter. They picked up this social distancing dance party on a routine helicopter patrol. 6 women who apparently drove out to this lot to get their groove on together, safely apart from each other and from other people. The police tweeted, "We see you, Calgary. We recommend staying home at all times, but if you're going to be outside, please keep your distance from others." And they thanked everyone who is self-isolating and these ladies for the best coronavirus party practices. No, Colin, somebody on Twitter said it looked like Narcos, you know, when the
Yes.
cartel meets. But up closer, those ladies were just out getting their groove on,
Yeah.
but doing it safely.
Yeah, you don't normally see the narcos dancing, but everything else did look the same. You're quite right about that. Hey, I want to talk to you about these winds that we are experiencing because they're not going to go away, at least not in the short term. The sustained winds are over in most cases, or many cases, over 30 kilometers an hour, but it's those wind gusts which are exceeding 55 kilometers an hour, and I'll show you what the forecast is for how long they're going to be with us here. So blustery out there. We don't really talk about wind chills when the temperature is actually above freezing, but I do have to say, and we all know it may be 7 degrees, but because the winds are from the northwest, west to northwest, it does feel cooler than that. Then add to that a little bit of energy and this instability giving us some precipitation. In many cases, I'm getting the readings that it's coming in mixed, so lots of light rain showers, not quite as much snow as it looks like in here, into the higher terrain, yes, and some light snow, as I was mentioning, into cottage country. We are seeing that, and we'll kind of see as the temperatures are falling through the evening hours that this mix does turn over to mostly some flurry activity coming through the GTA, and some of that lingering kind of like last night into the early morning hours before it clears out. So we will see kind of a mix of sun and cloud through the day on Friday. And then as this thing really departs, we're going to see things improving for our sky conditions into Saturday. So Saturday looks like sunshine and kind of the quiet day to take a breather before we, I know, get into Easter Sunday and Easter Monday, but that's when this next system will be moving in. So southwestern Ontario will start to see rain showers overnight Saturday. They'll work their way over towards the GTA, and then we get into rain Sunday and Monday. There are the wind gusts I'm talking about, though. Watch the deep purples, the stronger winds. Those will start to recede as we get into latter part of the day tomorrow. So they will be backing off, but tonight, tomorrow morning, still some very breezy conditions. Your temperatures going down to freezing. Markham, in your case, a little below. St. Catharines, in your case, just barely above. And just have a look. This is why I say Saturday looks so good. The Easter Bunny's happy. He's essential, can still do those hunts indoors, but that may be, even with those mild temperatures, Dwight, where you want to be with the rain and winds we're going to see Sunday into Monday.
Did you and the Easter Bunny call each other for the outfit today? Because it looks like you're matching, Colette.
I was thinking Easter colors.
There
I'm missing the yellow, that's all.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
The City of Toronto has developed a mental health support strategy to support the mental health needs of residents during the pandemic.
We consider the mental health support services for being offered today and the ones that are already in place to be essential for the well-being of the people of Toronto, and therefore these services are free, provided by the City of Toronto and with the help and assistance of these agencies.
Mayor Tory recognizing that self-isolating and staying at home can increase anxiety and stress. Residents can call 211 to access free support from organizations like Kids Help Phone, Toronto Seniors Helpline, and the Ontario Psychological Association. The system in place is more streamlined, connecting those in need to health professionals. Toronto has a total of 1,519 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 174 patients in hospital and 76 in the ICU. With so many people spending more time at home and less time driving, the Insurance Bureau of Canada says rates and discounts are on the way for auto insurance customers. But it may not be as much of a break as we're hoping for. Alicia San explains.
For most of us, the commute into work is a lot different. You take yourself to wherever your laptop is, instead of taking the highway. So while our cars sit in the driveway, should we still have to pay our regular car insurance rates?
People are going out, just to grab some food from the groceries, and rest of the time it is sitting idle.
Keeping up with expenses is especially hard on people who have lost their job, or like Hassan Shibli, who drove for a living.
I stopped driving from early March. I am also, close to 60, so I have diabetic also. So that's why I decided not to go out at this time, Amount we are paying, $260, is, pretty high. But for normal time, it is okay, because we are earning money.
Well, there's no question that the crisis has had a profound impact on many aspects of our life, including the way we drive.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada has announced that adjustments are already being made, but it will vary between providers, so you have to call.
Explain the new circumstances And the insurance company will make provisions for that and provide some sort of premium reduction.
The IBC says about $600 million worth of rebates and discounts will be available to Canadians. It's far from an across-the-board rate reduction, which is something the provincial NDP is calling for. They're asking that Ontario drivers get a 50% break on auto insurance payments for 3 months, and that drivers can defer their payments if they lost their job.
Yeah, especially for now, I'd be happy if they reduce by 50% at least, for at least till everything is over,
The CEO of the IBC says they were working with the government on an overall rate reduction before COVID-19.
That's a discussion that unfortunately has been put on hold because of this crisis.
Your best bet right now is to call and ask your provider what they can offer. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
We can't handle the worst case scenarios. We can't even handle the moderate case scenarios with all we've done. Option B.
New York's governor tells his citizens to stay the course as the curve of the coronavirus cases seems to be flattening in the states. After the break, Susan Ormiston takes us to the heart of New York City for a look at life right now in the Big Apple. We'll be right back. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved out of intensive care. Johnson had been in the ICU for 3 days after his symptoms for coronavirus worsened. He tested positive for the virus 2 weeks ago and at first had only mild symptoms. His office says he remains in good spirits. For the third day in a row, New York State set a new record for the number of fatalities due to COVID-19. Another 799 people passed away, bringing the total number of dead in the state to more than 7,000. That's almost half the number of all coronavirus deaths in the U.S. Susan Ormiston has more from the epicenter of the American outbreak, New York City.
This is Times Square as you may have known it, but of course it looks nothing like it used to here in New York City. This is 7th Avenue, Broadway's over here. The theater district is completely closed. There's barely any traffic on the streets. This city is under siege, and the mayor said this morning that there is still widespread transmission in New York City. Sure, there may be a plateau in that fewer people are being hospitalized, more coming out than going in, according to the mayor. But the level of surge in this city is still extremely high. I heard from a paramedic who said that he's getting many more calls for things like heart attack, which suggests to him that the numbers of deaths are unreported, that most of the critical care in this city right now is related to COVID. I spoke to a doctor at a hospital out in one of the boroughs who said people come in for strokes and they look at the x-rays and see that there is coronavirus in their lungs. So that number of deaths, which spiked to the highest ever yesterday, may be even higher. We are expecting a very difficult week still. The mayor is saying that April is still going to be hard, urging people not to give up their restrictions, not to fill up these streets. It's simply too dangerous level at this point. We're also seeing an increase in the stress. In many of the boroughs outside Manhattan, people are still having to go to work to meet their rent. We see the disease impacting African American and Latino neighborhoods higher than in others. The New York Police Department is seeing a 75% increase in burglaries, and they have 1 in 5 of police officers who have fallen sick with the coronavirus disease. So it's still a city that is on edge. It's palpable. I heard one man say, psychologically, I see coronavirus everywhere. It's hard to imagine when or how the city is going to open up, but officials are urging New Yorkers not to expect it to be soon, not to expect it to happen in April. It's simply still spreading too fast. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, New York.
After the break, today's Frontline Heroes. Stick around for that. We'll be right back. During a crisis, we sometimes look to our mentors for guidance. It's something Troy Campbell is doing right now. He sent us an email hoping to thank his former teacher, Sahan Insafi, who's working on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic. Insafi is an emergency medicine physician assistant at the University Health Network. He provides a broad range of services in their emergency departments. Now, Campbell told us, Sahad is a brilliant, hard-working, compassionate physician's assistant. While Sahad has been working with potential COVID-19 patients, he has also made sure that all other patients entering the ED are provided with the best possible care. Sahad also makes patient education videos on YouTube.
If you have minimal symptoms, or if you've been exposed and have no symptoms, there is no role for you to come to an emergency department or a healthcare provider if you feel well, because there's nothing that we would do.
Sahan has always made these videos, Campbell says, but now he's taking it upon himself to answer common questions and concerns about COVID-19. He's also the Ontario Doctor of the Canadian Association of Physician Assistants and has ensured all of them are comfortable too. So thank you for what you're doing, Sahan. If you would like to share a story about your frontline hero, just send us a selfie-style video explaining why they are a hero to you. You can tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto. Send us a message on Facebook or email us at torontotips@cbc.ca. Thank you for everything you're doing on the front lines, everybody. That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. We leave you tonight with a very special parade for healthcare workers outside the St. Thomas Elgin General Hospital by the agricultural community there. Just beautiful. Have a great night, everybody.